Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And Skyrim is a game with a nearly endless number of enemies and potential foes for the Dragonborn to contend with in your everlasting quest to save the world. And among the most daunting opponents the player must jockey against is Miraak. The primary antagonist of Skyrim's Dragonborn DLC, Miraak was once the world's first Dragonborn, who thousands of years ago served the ancient dragons that once ruled all of Skyrim. When the man found out he was special, he attempted to overthrow the Dovas and create a new world order with himself at the top. Alas, things didn't go quite as planned, and he was forced to flee to Apocrypha, a plane of oblivion ruled by Hermaeus Mora, where he's remained all these years, planning a return to the mortal realm and a betrayal of his divine master. Of course, that's where we come in. Overall, his incredible power, central role in the storyline, and interesting background make Miraak among the most prolific villains in the Elder Scrolls franchise. But despite his notoriety, chances are there are still quite a few surprising things you never knew about this central antagonist. Which is what we're going to explore today. Sit back and relax as we dive into 5 things you probably didn't know about the Elder Scrolls' first true Dovahkiin. Starting off, we begin this video with the conclusion of the Dragonborn DLC's main questline, where Miraak meets his end. As well at the summit of Apocrypha, after the players weaken him enough during your final battle, Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince who saved Miraak so long ago in the first place, turns on him and impales the first Dragonborn, putting an end to his life once and for all, and naming the player his new champion. It's an odd, somewhat bittersweet moment, as it's certainly relieving to get rid of Miraak, but we all know Hermaeus Mora isn't exactly the most benevolent fellow. However, what you may not have known is that Bethesda seems to have at one point in the DLC's development intended for Miraak to survive this moment and live on. Unused dialogue found in the game's files that Miraak was meant to say after the battle implies that he would have survived and lived on to fight another day. Take a listen.
Well fought, Dragonborn, but I'm afraid this is not over. I shall return and take what is mine. Necessity demands it.
Now, it's unclear if Bethesda was planning on giving the player another battle with Miraak after this moment, or, considering this is the final main quest, simply end the DLC with him surviving. Heck, it wouldn't be out of character for Bethesda to have given this questline multiple different potential endings, and Miraak's continued survival could have been one of them. There's also the question of what Hermaeus Mora would have done in this situation. As mentioned, Hermaeus Mora took Miraak into Apocrypha as a means of saving him after his failed power grab from the dragons, under the condition that Miraak would serve him, and the DLC ends with Mora killing Miraak and replacing him with you effectively. So in this scenario, would the failed Dragonborn just have evaded the Daedric god's wrath somehow? Would Miraak remain Hermaeus Mora's champion? There's a lot of variables here, and that's likely part of the reason why Bethesda decided to cut this element from the game. But it's still always fun to speculate on what could have been. Next on our list, Miraak is also a man of many faces. Let me explain. Throughout our experience with him, Miraak remains clad in a unique set of attire that covers his full body as well as face. The character can never be pickpocketed, and when he finally is killed, his corpse quickly dissolves into little more than a skeleton, meaning we're never given an opportunity to see what this man looks like without his mask on in normal gameplay. However, with the power of console commands, we can do just that. And our discovery might surprise you. As it turns out, Miraak never had a custom character model designed for him, or at least not a single one. And underneath all of his clothes, he'll actually spawn in with one of 2 randomly selected Nordic character presets that will vary from playthrough to playthrough. This effectively means the Dragonborn DLC's central antagonist has no real canonized physical appearance. One of the 2 body and face combos he may spawn in with appears to be one we commonly see Nord bandits spawn in with. The other is a bit more special, and I think suits him a lot better. A bald character with completely blackened eyes that has a facial appearance that just comes across as quite a bit older. It's still not exactly what I was expecting, but it's certainly better than the first one. Additionally, despite spawning in with Nordic presets and physical features no matter what, plus it making logical sense that Miraak would be a Nord, what with him hailing from Skyrim and everything, not even that seems to be confirmed, as his character technically spawns in with a custom race that Skyrim's files call the Miraak race. So not even his race is explicitly made clear either. I personally found all of this information incredibly fascinating and somewhat odd. It seems Bethesda did design a special face and character features underneath all that armor for those curious enough to use console commands, but for whatever reason, they also gave Miraak a 50% chance to spawn in with a relatively generic-looking Nord character. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And of course, this again also means that there is no definitive appearance Miraak has, at least not according to the canon lore, considering there's two possibilities. So, for the time being, unless Bethesda decides to elaborate upon this somehow in a future Elder Scrolls game, it looks like we don't really have a definitive face to attach Miraak's mask to. Coming in at number 3, Bethesda sets up the player's first encounter with Miraak to be quite a dramatic one. After reading a black book and finding yourself in Apocrypha, Miraak will introduce himself with an intimidating, but somewhat expected, "I'm the bad guy, nice to meet you" speech, before giving you an evil laugh and sending you back to the mortal realm. But what you may not have known is that depending on how many dragons the player has slain throughout the game prior to meeting him, the contents of Miraak's speech will change ever so slightly.
Ah, you are Dragonborn. I can feel it. And yet, you have done little beyond killing a few dragons. You have defeated dragons, yes. But still, you have slain a great many dragons, I see. So you have slain Alduin. Well done. I could have slain him myself back when I walked the earth. But I chose a different path.
For 4th spot, Miraak's temple is a central location in the Dragonborn DLC. A grand structure currently being built by a small army of somewhat unconscious slaves, dedicated to the first Dragonborn. It stands as a testament to both Miraak's own power and his ego. It's also suggested Miraak needs the temple fully completed before he can return to our universe. Beneath the site is an impressive series of hidden tombs and chambers, making for one of Solstheim's largest dungeons, and only increasing just how impressive this place is. The temple is built around an ancient magical rock, known as the Tree Stone. It's just one of 6 similar boulders scattered across the island that the Skull tribes refer to as the Allmaker Stones. They play an important role in their faith, and have a similar gameplay function to that of Skyrim's Standing Stones, granting the player powerful abilities depending on which ones you interact with. After Miraak's been murdered to death by Hermaeus Mora, and the DLC questline completed, the last Dragonborn can return to the Tree Stone to receive a power called the Root of Power. See what Bethesda's doing there? Anyway. Which allows the player to cast spells for 75% less magicka than normal for 50 seconds when used. Quite helpful. Alas, something one might find rather interesting is that this same Tree Stone made an appearance and had a part to play in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC, which, like Dragonborn, also took place on the island of Solstheim, just a few hundred years earlier. In Blood Moon, the Tree Stone was located roughly in the same place, with a somewhat similar appearance, though didn't have an entire temple being built all around it. In Morrowind, and this is later reiterated in Skyrim, we learn that the Skull believe not in many different gods like most Tamrielic religions, but instead, they believe in a single one, called the Allmaker. And the Allmaker's point of contact with our world comes from these stones. So, for instance, the Wind Stone is the Allmaker's point of contact with the sky. The Water Stone is his with the sea. The Earth Stone with the earth, you get the idea. And the Tree Stone represents his point of contact with nature. We're left unsure why Miraak decided to build his temple around this stone in particular, however. In neither of the games is the tree stone suggested to be the most powerful of all of them, or special in any capacity. So Miraak's decision here is rather odd, but nonetheless, it's cool to know that all the way back in the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, an object we interacted with so frequently would become the point of contact for a different, more evil type of god. And finally, last on our list, he was called upon to help defeat Alduin, but declined. This fact is somewhat connected with one of the varying phrases the Dragon Priest could say upon your first meeting with him, which we covered in the third category of this video, but let me elaborate a bit first. So, we've already went over Miraak's own story. He used to serve the dragons back when they ruled over Skyrim, realized he was a Dragonborn and pretty powerful, tried to revolt and seize power for himself, but failed pretty miserably, and scurried off to Apocrypha under a Daedric god's protection. However, while Miraak's little revolt might have failed, an unknown amount of time later, towards the end of the Merethic era, many humans living under the rule of the dragons rebelled themselves, and they were much more successful, using a special shout to defeat the leader of the Dovas, Alduin, to send him forward in time, making him the future's problem, and slaying the rest of the winged beasts to win their freedom. This conflict was known as the Dragon War, and marked the end of dragons being a decisive force in Tamriel. At least, up until the events of the Elder Scrolls V. At the climax of Skyrim's main questline, during our showdown with Alduin and Sovngarde, we're actually aided by the spirits of some of those Nords who had leading roles and fought in that original Dragon War so long ago. Well, if by the time of your final battle with Miraak that takes place at the end of the Dragonborn DLC, the player has already completed Skyrim's main quest and banished Alduin, amidst your battle, Miraak may say the following line of unique dialogue.
Felling Alduin was a mighty deed, and I thank you for it. He would have proved troublesome to me. They wanted to use me to deal with Alduin, Hakon and the rest. I chose otherwise.
Similar to what we covered in our third spot, here Miraak's sort of commending you for taking out, albeit in an arrogant manner, a dragon he thought could pose an obstacle to his plans of world conquest. But more significantly, he mentions that Hakon and the rest wanted his help in fighting Alduin. Without context, such a quote may not make much sense. But Hakon, of course, is one of those Nords who helped lead the Dragon War uprising, and helps us out in Sovngarde. So it would seem, assuming Miraak's being honest, that the heroic warriors who saved Tamriel so long ago, and again alongside us, indeed sought the support of one of the universe's most devious characters in their struggle. Maybe this is what Miraak meant when he says, "Well done, I could have slain him myself, but chose to walk a different path during your first meeting if you've already killed Alduin." For a while prior to, and during that whole war, Miraak was still held up in Apocrypha. So it's unclear if the Nordic rebels ventured into Hermaeus Mora's realm, or found some other way to communicate with him. It's also possible they simply didn't know how evil and twisted Miraak was in the first place. Whatever the true story here is, it's quite odd to imagine that some of Skyrim's greatest heroes were seeking the help of one of its most evil villains. And with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 things you probably didn't know about the Dragonborn DLC's central antagonist. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Which of these secrets, hidden facts, or tiny details, if you will, did you find to be the most impressive? And what Skyrim Easter eggs do you know of that I've thus far yet to tackle? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Special thanks to the patrons appearing on screen now, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.